co-host Steve Maggi for the first episode of the Global Village Law and Money podcast.
Hi, Shannon. Nice to be with you. Looking forward to this.
Me too, Steve. In this episode, Steve and I are going to talk about the types of topics that we'll be covering going forward and why we thought that it was important to create this podcast. First, I want to ask my co-host, Steve Maggi, and also my classmate from Georgetown Law School about his law practice and what kind of drove him to do what he currently does.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand what motivates us as attorneys, why we chose our calling. And my calling really was based on my own personal history. I came to the U.S. when I was 5. I was born in Argentina. My mom was born and raised in the U.S., but because of an obscure law back in the late 70s, she could not get me a passport. So I had to go through a 9-year process to become a U.S. citizen. And because I had to live in those muddied waters where I didn't know what my identity was, I didn't understand where I stood in society, I didn't speak the language, I think I gravitated to immigration law because I wanted to help other people in unique and similar sometimes situations navigate those really turbulent waters of an ever-changing system so they could realize their American dream. And that especially happens now with a focus on entrepreneurs. Since I'm an entrepreneur and I launched my own law firm in 2004, so it's been quite a while. I understand the passion that people have to bring something new to the U.S. or to expand their existing business from wherever they're from. And the great thing is it's a win-win for the U.S. economy because not only does the U.S. get new jobs, but these immigrants are allowed to stay here and to build out those businesses. And sometimes they create 30, 40, 50 jobs over time. And that's very rewarding for me. So I like to really delve into this each day. And because I love the business aspects, and we're going to talk about money on this program too, I like to help people protect their investment and to watch these businesses flourish. And so that's why I do what I do, and it keeps me motivated every day to do it. And I think those are some of the things we're going to talk about on the program. And I'm going to do more of a deep dive into some of the visas that are used by my clients in order to be able to move here and to run their businesses.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that and also your personal story. And I think that's just a perfect example of just how complicated and challenging navigating some of these issues can be for people, and how, you and hopefully I will be able to help our listeners to make it a little bit smoother, at least for them to understand a little bit more what they can expect and some of the issues to look out for, and when they should hire a lawyer and the types of immigration avenues that may be available for them to come to the United States or to change their status, and also on the money end and the legal planning end, how they can protect their families and their money and their investments.
Yeah, I think it's important for the viewers to understand that the reason why you and I joined forces in this podcast is because there was really a need for lawyers specialized in helping foreign nationals that are making a transition to the U.S. or they're in the U.S. potentially transitioning out. Like, what are all the tax implications? What are all the trust and estates implications? The immigration implications? All of this is interwoven. You can't make an informed decision about your future, especially when you're moving to the U.S., without analyzing all those factors at the same time and having a solid strategy on top of making sure that if you're setting up a business, that it's a very solid business model. You can't just throw 3 coins in the air and hope that they'll land in the right place, right? You have to make sure that you're planning. And that's a lot of the pre-immigration planning that we do together and with some of our other colleagues. And I'm sure we'll be talking to some other experts as well, because there are so many different expertise that are involved in this. And what a lot of people don't realize from overseas is that, especially if they come from civil law countries, is that in the U.S. we are uber specialized, and each kind of law is very complicated. And so you have to have a team of experts to work with. And so that's sort of where this was all born in terms of why we are doing these podcasts, what our motivations are. I would like for you to tell the viewers a little bit more about you, what you do, and then, what your background is that got you into this niche of being able to specialize and work with so many foreign nationals.
Sure. And I think that what you had mentioned about there's so many overlapping issues is really important for people to understand. And it is refreshing. I felt like speaking to you about what you do, and you have an interest in not just getting people their visas, but kind of in helping them with their lives and making sure that they are on the right path after they get the approval. Because I think a lot of immigration lawyers, you get the approval and then they're kind of you're just on your own way and have to navigate everything yourself. So
Right.
so I really appreciate that that aspect and that approach that you have and that interest that you have. And you did this whole video series, and that's kind of how we connected,
Right.
was on this building the bridge to America and to the American dream, of all of the things that immigrants need to be aware of once they do get their visas. So so kind of coming at this from a holistic aspect is really important. A little bit about me. I'm the founder of a tax and estate planning law firm in New York City, and we work with a lot of foreign nationals in the U.S., partially because that is a bit of my background just in terms of what I've always been interested in. I've traveled a
Mm.
lot. I majored in international studies when I was an undergrad, so that was always an interest of mine. And then even in my practice, one, New York City is just full of immigrants. I think I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is, but it's probably a majority are either foreign born or first generation.
Yeah, I think it's first, second, third. Foreign born is more than half. If you go three generations back, you're over half. And I know Queens, where I used to live, was more than half of the 2 million people that live there are actually foreign born. So it's as immigrant dense as any city in the United States.
Yeah, and I think in Queens they speak over 100 languages,
Yeah.
Which is mind blowing. But which is why I love it, and it makes it so diverse and so interesting. And part of working with these clients who were not born in the U.S. is just realizing how complicated their situations are, and a lot of the kind of pitfalls that they can fall into, and that there is a shortage of lawyers who really specialize in this area, and
Very
trying
true.
to really fill that gap and provide, to fill that need. So, and it's really rewarding, because I think as you've seen, people come here and it's so exciting, right? It's so exciting. People come here almost always out of choice. This is the United States is by far the number one destination country for immigrants, destination country of choice. And so getting here and I usually see them often after they go through the immigration process, but then not realizing, well, all of these different tax laws apply to me,
Yeah.
and sometimes not realizing it until it's too late. So they've done transactions, they've held foreign mutual funds, all of these things that then end up causing them a whole lot of headache and possibly really costly fees and taxes that really could have been easily avoided.
Right.
And so kind of helping clients with that and to avoid those problems, and then also just protecting their families. So when you're here, often you're the only person from your family who's here. And maybe you're bringing your child, or you marry somebody here, or you bring your spouse. But if something happened to you, then other close family members are not close by to be able to help with making healthcare decisions or taking
Right.
care of
Yeah,
your
we've talked
children.
about that before.
And so it's really even particularly important for these clients to have a really good plan in place and something that's comprehensive, that will cross borders, so that will address their assets in another country, and that will make it, protect their children and make it easier for their family members who are left behind to navigate things. You just don't want to have those family members trying to navigate U.S. court systems and possibly another language, a foreign language that they don't speak. And it can be really devastating for the loved ones after, of course, already a terrible tragedy. And I've seen that so many times, and it's heartbreaking. So whatever we can do ahead of time to put plans in place so that we're not dealing with this, or to make it easier for loved ones, to reduce taxes that are completely unnecessary. It's just that somebody didn't tell them, well, this is not, it's not a good idea to put your money here. However I can help prevent that is really rewarding for me.
Yeah, it goes back to the holistic approach that we talked about, and the pre-immigration planning and the prevention, and like you said, protecting not only you and your family, but your assets for future contingencies. The upside of having practiced for so long for both of us is that we've seen all the horror stories, we've seen all the mistakes, we've seen the lack of prevention. And the only upside to that is that we can learn from that, from examples that we've seen from people that consulted us too late or after the fact, or trying to fix things afterwards, and incorporate that into our strategies for what we call preemptive strikes. In other words, have everything set in place. And it's a little daunting to be, I'm saying that minimally, like it's very daunting really for foreign nationals to hear all these different things that they should have in place. But in the long term, it's the most beneficial and effective way to protect themselves if they're planning on being here long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And why, this podcast hopefully is going to help so many people to avoid some of those pitfalls and increase their awareness and their knowledge of how to navigate these issues. And going to back again to kind of the comprehensive planning, the estate planning, the tax planning, the immigration planning, so many other issues come up as well that, I hope we'll be able to bring on other guests that have expertise in those areas. Like family law is a big issue that crosses borders and changes when people move. Other areas, employment law, business law, that's, in financial planning, different retirement planning. So all of these things that just try to make things easier for foreign nationals when they do come here, and even if they've been here for a while, but they may not have been thinking about some of these issues.
Yeah, and sometimes people are thinking about the financial issues or even some of the complex tax issues that you're talking about and assuming that the immigration part is easy, when in fact they need to make sure they have a solid short-term and long-term plan, because otherwise they might be stuck either not getting into the U.S. or not being able to stay in the U.S. And so that's why you have to have that be an important part of the overall strategy as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think some of these things, part of the reason I think people can end up in trouble is just so overwhelming. And even if you try to navigate them on the internet and, there's plenty of information out there, but where is it all in one place, and just trying to understand it all, it's almost like it's literally in a foreign language, but just even in addition, it's in this lingo that can be very difficult to understand. And so I'm hoping that in this podcast, we can make things a little bit simpler to just to kind of cut through some of that lingo and the complexities, to just cut to what do people really need to know, what are some of the key takeaways and some of the key things to avoid, mistakes to avoid, just so that it's something easy that they can listen to regularly and just take that away. That's what our goal is for the podcast.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this, and thanks to the viewers who will be watching. Shannon, we'll get this rolling soon. We'll start with our first topic soon, but I'm really excited about this podcast.
Me too, and I'm so glad to have you joining us, and also for all of those listening, we look forward to having you with us on this journey.